I'm sure you have worked with a bunch of different product managers in your career journey so far. First of all, I want to discuss that do we even need that particular role in the industry? And if yes, then who do you call out as a good or a great product manager?
Okay. Uh, I think the role of product managers evolved maybe when the startups became much more prominent here in India. I think earlier there was a different version of a product manager, like project managers and program managers and stuff like that. But at Samsung, it was very different the way it was executed. There was no product managers per se. There was uh, requirements which actually typically come from business, and
Okay.
the engineering leaders used to work very closely with that and then trickle down. Uh, and that worked well for us for a very long time. And when I left, at least that structure was not in place.
Okay.
But when I moved to my first startup, Blackbuck, uh, in the initial days, again, there's no product managers. There's just us, 3 engineers, 4 engineers working directly with the founders to execute and deliver. And very, very quickly, we figured out, okay, hey, founders come from a business first and customer first perspective. Their requirements shape based upon how that changes in the market, and in the PMF stage or even in a BMF, like a business market fit stage, it could change very drastically. Uh, if they are giving you inputs and asking you to change, and if you keep changing it, it's almost as if that your product is having a new type of a dimension almost on a every week or a bi-weekly basis, which means that you're not executing well from an engineers. That also something that I got to experience, that okay, hey, someone needs to model what is essentially required from a product perspective for at least short to mid term and then long term.
Okay.
That has to be discussed with the leadership team, and that has to be condensed and closed on, and then you build a multiple variants of it in future. If engineers get to do that, if you have time to do that, they can, but I don't think in reality you get to do it in such a way that engineers will themselves will go and say, okay, hey, let me figure out how to move this user from checkout to the order. These are the problem statement I want to change. This is how I'd want to do in a short term, mid term, long term, and do all of that and execute at the same time in parallel. So that it needs a separate mind space altogether to define such things, and that's where definitely I think product managers is a right skill set, right type of people to have in these organizations. Uh, that brings me to your second question, which is what type of a product manager I feel is well. I think uh, PMs have a lot of thrust upon them when it comes into what they want to execute. Like, so when I say thrust in terms of expectations coming in from their business leaders, expectations coming in from matrices that they have to move,
Yeah.
and how impact they will actually have to deliver. A good product manager will be able to compartmentalize all of this and just focus upon building what is right for the customer. And if they are able to convince that to your leadership team, that is the first sign that okay, hey, you are building the right product.
Okay.
Typically what happens that you have a perception of what you want to build as a right product, but there might not be PMF for that. There might not be it's an intuition based maybe, but not a data backed big
Yeah. What you want to build versus what the customer wants.
customer wants. So a right PM would be very data focused. The right PM would actually bring a good mix of intuition and data to show that to your customers. They will be able to show that to your leadership as well, that okay, hey, this small chunk of feature change had these many impacts and metrics which got moved, and hence this is a right call to take. So that is one critical trait that I would want to have in a PM.
Okay.
The second trait which I would want to gauge a PM is upon the obsession with how they want to view the data, view the product altogether.
Okay.
So when I say obsession, it could mean in the design, it could mean in the flows in which the product is actually constructed, but it shows me that, okay, let's take the design example. So it shows me that if you're obsessed about how, let's say, a button clicks are actually happening or the swipe is happening, and how the transition happens from one flow to another flow, and you are very particular about that particular type of transition because of XYZ reason, because you are able to see that in the data, then you show that, okay, hey, um, uh, the customers need this. You have already shown that the data is portraying coming back with this kind of an analogy that, this is the right thing to do. You can also show to your engineers that, okay, um, you are able to convert all of that to a feature flow and a product requirements which makes sense to your business. So they are very, very hyper focused upon what the building, the product the right way, not the right product the right in the initial go, but at least the product the right way.
Understood.
So that depth, going into that depth and figuring out what is needed is essentially very critical. The third trait I would actually want as an engineer, not as a leader, but as an engineer, is good product manager should be able to push back.
Okay.
So very common in a early to mid stage startup is there'll be so many requirements that comes in from business and ground operations, that the requirements tell you that, okay, change the products XYZ so many different ways. A good product manager will be able to cut down the noise and say what is necessary to your leadership. They will be able to push them back with the right data and do that in a right way. Sometimes your leadership will question you that, hey, we should not do this, let's go build XYZ product in a way where the GTM, the go to market is like this. They will dictate some of these things. If the product manager is not able to push back and say, okay, hey, if that is not the right way, they're not able to push back and say, okay, let's not do this. These are the data points which is showing you this. This is the market study that I have done, which shows you these are the competitors' ways of doing this. So if they're not able to do that kind of a pushback, then it's almost on always that an engineer is bearing the front of those ad hocness, the execution, context switching, and that plays an impact on morale of the engineers as well. So a good PM, this is the third trait that I actually want to look into. And the final thing I think is all of this amalgamates into how you write PRD. But in that PRD, what becomes very clear is how you are actually constructing your product and how the requirements are actually getting structured. So if your goals and objectives are not marrying to the problem statement that you thought, okay, is the right problem statement to solve, and how that story is contributing to that problem statement, that also becomes, okay, a place where, hey, are we building the right product, whether the requirement is correct or not. So that's a I would say this fourth one is a fundamental thing.
Yeah, that's table stakes.
Yeah, it's something which will showcase how you are able to convert a problem statement into different types of solutions and approaches. But this is of course essential, because that is where engineers will gain faith on the product.
Yeah.
More, the other way around, all the things we talked about initially are basically leadership first, business first, and customer first. But your engineers also have to gain faith that, okay, we are doing it the right way. So these are some 4 to 5 aspects of a PM. I would.
Got it. Okay. Very, very perfectly put into multiple different segments. Thanks a lot, Ajith. Are there any parting advice or anything which you want to share with the audience? Our audience is primarily people who are early PMs, or people who want to get into product management, or people who are engineers, software engineers.
Okay. Not so much as an advice, but I would say that if you are early in a starting phase right now, see how look out. Right now, from an Indian ecosystem, it's actually maturing from a startup, because almost from 2013, 14, there are so many startups which have actually come. There's enough examples of how things are actually done, which have worked or not worked. I think bringing that learning into something that you are already doing, either in your current work or if you're interviewing with the next set of companies, that definitely helps in terms of showcasing your skill sets.
Okay.
If there is a way to build ads the right way, or if there is a way to build some other product right, there are so many enough data points available today. So that kind of a activity of doing that extra mile and figuring out what is working for your company and the businesses that matters.
Got it.
So my advice there would be to figure out that there's so much of data today which may not be as apparent as it was like 15 years back to many engineers then. So it's much easier to now get a product out to market as well. So marrying these two, like the learnings with the ways to quickly move the product out, I think that's a mantra to the success for the next gen of engineers, so that they have plethora of that pool of advice and suggestions there. So I think using that will really help for their success.